Former Next Media CEO Chung Kim-hung gives testimony as an accomplice witness in Jimmy Lai's national security trial. Competition Commission officers and police crack down on alleged price fixing among funeral service companies. And China's population falls for the second year in a row. Hello and welcome to TVB News. As media tycoon Jimmy Lai's national security trial continues, the former CEO of Next Digital, the parent company of Apple Daily, testified against his ex-boss today. Chung Kim-hung explained in court how Jimmy Lai was the decision maker and leader of the company who helmed its editorial direction. The accomplice witness also described how the 2014 Occupy Central movement was the watershed moment for Lai and Apple Daily to take on a more vocal anti-government and anti-Beijing stance. Jackie Lin reports.
Day 11 of Jimmy Lai's trial, the media tycoon once again taken from the prison to the West Kowloon Law Courts under heavy security. Also taken to the court was Chung Kim-hung, former CEO of Apple Daily's parent company, Next Digital. Chung earlier pleaded guilty to having conspired to collude with foreign forces and publishing seditious material, two of the three charges Jimmy Lai is facing. Testifying for the prosecution against his former boss as an accomplice witness, Chung told the court he joined Next magazine as a business editor in 1991, and with Lai's recognition of his performances, he became the chief editor in 1994. When asked if he reported directly to Lai, Chung said his work was assigned by director-publisher Jiang Wei-hong. He spent 3 days every week between 2001 and 2005 to help run Next magazine's Taiwan edition. After the magazine recorded a profit, he decided to take a break and quit the company. Upon Lai's invitation, Chung rejoined Next magazine as a content advisor in 2010. He was appointed chief editor of Apple Daily a year later and promoted to publisher of the newspaper in 2016. In 2018, he was also named Next Digital CEO. When asked how he defined the relationship between Next Digital's operation and Jimmy Lai's role, Chung said Lai was the company's top leader and decision maker, and he himself was responsible for executing Lai's ideas. Chung said each department took turns to attend a Thursday lunchbox meeting with Lai, Chung himself and former associate publisher Chen Pui-man. Lai would make editorial decisions and sometimes share his political views in the meeting. Such directions were then communicated across the departments, Chung said. Describing Lai as a helmsman of the company, Chung said Lai started to make more decisions for the company around the 2014 Occupy Central movement and used the paper to call for democracy and universal suffrage. Before that, Apple Daily mainly focused on entertainment news. Chung said the 2014 Occupy Central movement marked a watershed moment when Lai became more active in political movements and when Apple Daily's direction turned anti-Beijing and anti-government. He recalled in 2019, Lai said the extradition bill was encroaching upon Hong Kong's freedom and human rights, and it would affect businesses and the press, so Lai called for protests against the government. Chung confirmed Lai also published his commentaries every Sunday, with anti-SAR government and anti-Communist Party views which no one dared to revise. Chung's testimony will continue tomorrow afternoon. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The Competition Commission raided 13 locations, including funeral service companies and offices, with alleged price-fixing schemes. Some lawmakers hope the government will step up scrutiny over the pricing of the city's death care services. Jackie Lin again.
A swoop by Competition Commission officers alongside police at multiple funeral service companies in Hong Kong. The operation came after funeral service practitioners were alleged to have engaged in anti-competitive behaviors, including price fixing. It's understood the antitrust watchdog suspected a trade association set a minimum charge for some services among its members. Chairman of the Funeral Business Association, Kwok Hoi Pong, said he's baffled by the price-fixing allegation. In August last year, the Competition Commission conducted investigations at the New Territory Sha Tin Forensic Medicine Center. That's after they received reports that some funeral service practitioners coordinated the solicitation of customers there. Lawmaker Chen Huoyan hopes the government will keep a better watch on the pricing of funeral services, slamming any unscrupulous business practices to maximize profits when people are grieving for their loved ones.
個業界都講到明咧，就因為唔同嘅從業員啦嚇。
Julie Wang, chief executive of the Consumer Council, cited the body's 2019 findings over the lack of transparency among Hong Kong's funeral services, adding different funeral companies often quoted different prices for different coverage of services as well. With that, Wang reminds consumers to compare the packages and pricing among funeral companies before choosing one for the best death care services for the deceased. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
The government said it will allow residents to dispose of smaller-sized garbage in public rubbish bins after the implementation of the municipal waste disposal charging scheme in April, but did not provide details for the sizes. Meanwhile, a Food and Environmental Hygiene Department staffs union voiced its concern about a rise in illegal waste disposal cases after the commencement of the charging scheme and stressed the need to increase its manpower. Timothy Lee tells us more.
The upcoming waste charging scheme is set to begin in just around 2 months, but many residents are still asking questions about the waste disposal measure. This woman said residents may find it difficult to tell real and fake designated garbage bags apart. While this woman said the government's instructions on which designated garbage bag residents should use are unclear. Secretary for Environment and Ecology Zhe Junwan provided some details on a government website to clarify the measure. He mentioned garbage such as tissues and disposable lunchboxes are permitted to be disposed of in public trash cans, but did not clarify what other smaller-sized rubbish is allowed to be disposed of without the new designated bags. This woman noted residents of older apartments typically just throw their rubbish away in public trash cans, and she expects the number to rise after the measure has been rolled out. The Environmental Protection Department reminded residents not to dispose of their trash by placing it next to public rubbish bins that are already full, emphasizing the act is illegal. This as representatives from the Hong Kong Food and Environmental Hygiene Department Staff Rights Union voiced their concerns about an increase in cases of illegal waste disposal after the start of the measure in April. Some of them are worried about the department's manpower issues when handling such waste. Lawmaker Kitson Yang suggested authorities to roll out measures to encourage recycling in the community, such as handing out free designated garbage bags. Meanwhile, some district councillors said they are worried about the government not doing enough to notify the city's ethnic minority population about the charging scheme.
No, I didn't hear that. Maybe my employer will discuss this next month.
John Zhe, executive director of ethnic minority rights group Hong Kong Unison, suggested authorities could help by distributing free garbage bags labeled with multiple languages to ethnic minorities. Timothy Lee, TVB News.
China's gross domestic product grew 5.2% year-on-year in 2023. That's slightly better than the annual target of around 5%. For the entire year, the country's GDP reached a record of 126.06 trillion yuan. Kang Yi, head of the National Bureau of Statistics, said China's economy sustained its recovery momentum, but the economic outcome was hard-won. This, as Kang noted, the persistent risks from the complex external environment and insufficient domestic demand in 2024. The Bureau resumed the publication of youth unemployment data that it had suspended for 5 months. The December jobless rate for 16 to 26-year-olds, excluding college students, was at 14.9%. That's down from a record high of 21.3% in June, but the jobless rate still remains the highest among all age categories. The latest unemployment rate nationwide stood at 5.1%. China's population fell for the second year in a row. It dipped by 2.08 million last year. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the country's population stood at nearly 1.409 billion in late 2023. New births fell 5.7% to just over 9 million. That means there were 6.39 births per 1,000 people. That's lower than the death rate last year, which saw 7.87 deaths per 1,000 people. In total, 11.1 million people died in 2023. The Development Research Center of the State Council says the country's population has peaked and the downward trend is expected to continue for a long time. The center says authorities should roll out measures to minimize the negative impacts from the population decline. An all-Nippon Airways plane bound for Seattle had to return to Tokyo early today after reports that a passenger bit the arm of one of the crew mid-flight. The passenger, reportedly a 55-year-old American, was said to be heavily drunk at the time of the incident. He was restrained by cabin staff and then arrested on the aircraft's arrival back in Japan. The incident occurred on Tuesday night over the Pacific. The man denies any wrongdoing and told police he had taken a sleeping pill and did not remember what happened. Still ahead, Zelensky rallies support for Ukraine at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos. A government plan to install 2,000 surveillance cameras in areas with high pedestrian flows. And a low temperature of 5 degrees forecast for some areas in Hong Kong during next week's cold snap. Welcome back. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky slammed Russian leader Vladimir Putin at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos. Zelensky also urged political and business leaders facing war fatigue in the West to enforce their sanctions on Moscow and help rebuild his country and advance the peace process. This comes as Russian President Putin said his country's military has full initiative in Ukraine, and French President Emmanuel Macron announced plans to deliver more weapons to Ukraine. Daniel Rao reports.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the World Economic Forum's annual meeting in Davos with the aim of keeping his country's long and largely stalemated defense against Russia on the minds of political leaders, as Israel's war with Hamas siphons off much of the world's attention. In his plea, Zelensky sought to center Ukraine as a pillar in defense of democracies.
If anyone thinks this is only about us, this is only about Ukraine, they are fundamentally mistaken. Possible directions and even timeline of a new Russian aggression beyond Ukraine become more and more obvious. Let me ask very honestly, which European nation today can provide a combat-ready army on par with ours, holding back Russia? And how many men and women are your nation ready to send to defend another state, another nation? And if one must fight against Putin together in the years ahead, isn't it better to put an end to him and his war strategy now, while our brave men and women are already doing it? They are the world's chance. They are.
Zelensky, making his first trip to Davos since the war began, thanked his allies for sanctions on Moscow, but urged them to ensure they work. He said he believed the European Union and US would come through in a matter of weeks with more aid that has been held up by political infighting within his two biggest allies. Meanwhile, Russian President Vladimir Putin said his country's military has full initiative in Ukraine. Speaking at a meeting with heads of local councils, he warned that Ukrainian statehood could suffer irreparable, very serious damage. He also described calls for peace talks as an attempt to force Russia to give up the gains it has made. Putin said everyone understands that it's impossible, both Ukraine's ruling circles and Western allies. He reaffirmed that Russia and Ukraine agreed on key parameters of a peace deal in March 2022 in Istanbul, and pointed out at comments by the then head of the Ukrainian delegation at the talks, David Arachamia, who said that Kyiv pulled out of the agreement upon advice of then British Prime Minister Boris Johnson. Putin added Ukraine's refusal to make the peace deal then showed its lack of independence. Elsewhere, French President Emmanuel Macron used a primetime news conference to announce new deliveries of weapons to Ukraine. He said the plans are to deliver more long-range cruise missiles as well as bombs to Ukraine. Macron said he would himself travel to the country in February. The French president said to let Russia win the war in Ukraine is in fact to accept that the rules for global order can be disregarded. Dana Roll, TV News.
North Korean Foreign Minister Cho Sun-wei held talks with her Russian counterpart Sergei Lavrov and Russian President Vladimir Putin during a visit to Moscow on Tuesday. This comes amid international concerns over an alleged arms cooperation deal between Pyongyang and Moscow. In her talks with Lavrov, Cho hailed progress on implementing agreements struck during North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's visit to eastern Russia last September. She said the fact that now the foreign ministers of the two countries often meet and deepen comradely ties is yet more proof that the Korean-Russian friendly relations are energetically moving forward in accordance with the plans of the leaders. Cho later met with President Putin. No immediate details were available about their talks. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov earlier said the wider situation on the Korean peninsula, as well as the war in Ukraine, would be on the agenda. That's in addition to Putin's potential visit to North Korea. The Russian president accepted an invitation to visit the country from its leader Kim Jong-un last year. The government will install 2,000 surveillance cameras in areas with high pedestrian flows across the city for crime prevention purposes. Some lawmakers suggested connecting such cameras operated by different departments under a single system to raise their effectiveness. This after a high number of armed robberies were recorded last year in the Yaosimeng district. Deputy Chief Secretary for Administration Werner Czech said the first 600 cameras will be installed by the middle of the year, with the remaining 1,400 set to be installed by the end of the year. Yaosimeng District Councillor Wang Shu-ming noted the measure could help prevent similar robberies from occurring in popular stores in the area. Meanwhile, lawmaker Gary Chan said locations with active surveillance cameras must inform residents that they are being recorded. The observatory says temperatures next week will be even lower than what was forecast previously. Temperatures in some areas, such as Ta Kwu Ling, are expected to drop to 5 degrees Celsius next Wednesday. The weather body noted the fall in temperature is caused by a cold front reaching southern China in a few days. Those participating in Sunday's marathon could expect temperatures between 15 and 20 degrees. Temperatures next Monday are set to drop to 13 degrees in urban areas and a few degrees lower in the new territories. Areas including Shengshui, Taipo, and Laofaoshan can expect to see temperatures as low as 7 degrees. That's the news. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.